Om Ganati Miranda Shangarangana Salagya Chaksurun Miritam Yanatashmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yana Bhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dhanati Swaparadikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Samsadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Larita Shivishakan Vitam Stam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostitim Jayatam Sarito Pango Mama Mener Matsarvasha Parambaja Radha Ramadhan Mohanam Siman Rasa Rasaram Vivam Sivana Karsan Vinayashan Rupaka Gopinata Sriyasaram Divyad Vrindaranya Kapadrumada Srimad Radnagara Shima Shanishto Shri Sri Radha Shira Govindara Prasadavihi Seva Manushmarami Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanya Taya Cha Jagati Taya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namah Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Gudhajya Mangalam Panditi Kaksham Mangalayatano Hari Om Narayanaya Vidmahi Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tano Vishnu Prachodayate Om Mahadevi Cha Vidmahi Vishnu Padni Cha Dhimahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodayate Mahalakshmi Namastubhyam Namastudhyam Sade Sade Hari Premanastumam Namastim Sapti Kanchana Gorangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanasute Devi Pranamani Hari Prem Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Welcome to Transcendental Tuesday, Brent on Facebook. Excuse me. Cold weather brings a little congestion with it. And welcome Rob on Zoom as well. We'll most likely not have this session tomorrow because tonight is the night we have to go into Salt Lake City for the annual Diwali dinner and observances at the governor's mansion. We've been doing this since Huntsman was governor. We did it several years when John Huntsman was governor. Then we did it a couple of years, I think Norm Bangerter, or maybe that was before Huntsman. Then after Huntsman was Gary Herbert for quite a few years, and now Spencer Cox. This will be, with COVID and all, and having been canceled the last few years, this will be the first Diwali with Governor Spencer Cox and his wife. I think her name is Amy or Abby. Abby, I think it is. Dinesh Patel organizes along with Bhaskar and Joshi, and they ensure that the dinner is vegetarian for everybody, not just for the vegetarians, but even the meat eaters have to eat vegetarian on this particular night. And I've kind of been tabbed throughout the entire 14 or 15 years we've been going to the governor's mansion to give some introductory remarks. And so we may not get back till late after commuting back and forth between Salt Lake City and here. And so tomorrow we will not have the Bhagavatam session. But Monday I'll give you a full rundown, and we'll have some pictures undoubtedly on our Facebook page as well. Bye Bobby and I will be going up there. The first Diwali I remember there was no dinner. We simply stayed in the lobby and had a little puja and gave a talk. I don't know how many, it must have been 15, 16 years ago. It so happened that the Indian ambassador to the United States was visiting Salt Lake City at that time. I think he was from Bengal. So he and his wife came. And we were looking around for the governor, who was John Huntsman at the time. We couldn't start the puja without the governor, so everyone was looking, where's the governor, where's the governor? And finally he came out from the back, came out from the kitchen, rolling his sleeves down and buttoning them up and putting on his jacket, wiping the flour off his hand, and he said, "Oh, sorry to keep you waiting. I was in the kitchen making gulab jamuns." If you're going to have a governor, you might as well have a governor that can do something useful like making gulab jamuns. I remember one year at Diwali, John Huntsman was sitting in the front table there with Dinesh and Bhaskar, and also Scott Anderson was there as well. So I gave a gift to John Huntsman of mango achar, and boy, did his face light up. That was something that he really liked and appreciated. He's no longer in public life. He was actually defeated in the race for governor by Spencer Cox, so he's most likely involved with the Huntsman business. Anyway, we remember him very fondly. And Spencer Cox is a great guy too. One time during Diwali, I sat at a table with him. We were right next to each other. This was when he was lieutenant governor for Gary Herbert. Very nice guy and extremely articulate, educated, and well-spoken. So we'll look forward to, again, Diwali at the governor's mansion tonight. Is probably the 15th, 16th, maybe even 17th year. Not counting the 3-year hiatus of COVID. Today we're going back for the 21st time, revisiting the service. Maya, Javan, and Akaram, Agyana Dokshada Abhyam, Yan Lakshashe, Mudhadrishdam, Natyam Natadarampara. My Lord, your Maya Javanikam, you're covered by your illusory, your deluding potency. Whether one is a non-devotee or whether one is a devotee, it's our nature to be dependent. It's our nature. We're going to be unaware of the full extent of God's glories because we just don't have the tools to comprehend the vastness, the multifarious potencies of the Lord. So one way or another, we're going to be covered by a curtain of deluding energy. But the difference between the curtain that covers the non-devotees and the curtain that covers the devotees is that the devotees are covered by a curtain composed of Krishna's internal loving potency. There's an intimacy, there's a reciprocation. And in that internal potency, Krishna role plays. He's like an actor on the stage, appearing before the devotee just in such a way as to satisfy the innermost desires of that devotee's heart. How does Krishna know how to satisfy the innermost desires of that devotee's heart? Because he put them there. He created us. He made each and every one of us individually and uniquely with his own hand. So he knows us better than we know ourselves. And when we come to Krishna, beginning with chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, he gradually reveals to us what is our original spiritual identity. Right now, we're coming out of the material covering. If you're a devotee and you're practicing devotional service, you're coming out of it, but we're part in and part out, which means to say we still tend to identify with these material bodies and this material mind. And that's Maya, that's Yoga Maya potency. So the materialistic people, the people who haven't got any interest in God consciousness, they're fully under the Mahamaya, the material deluding potency of the Lord. And those who are fully Krishna conscious are fully under the Yoga Maya, which is the internal potency of the Lord. And we who are on the path of devotional service, we're kind of a little bit of this and a little bit of that. We have our moments of lucidity, we have our moments of purity, but we also have our moments too where we lapse because the conditioning is so strong and so long-lasting throughout thousands and thousands of previous births. So Krishna is Maya Javanikadikam, Agnya Dokshaja Avyam. Although he's, or perhaps because he's unlimited, he's infallible, he's eternal, he lies beyond the range of our limited, fallible, and ignorant senses to perceive him. But for those who want to serve him purely, without envy, the Lord awards them the roles of either Shanta, a neutral relationship, Dasya, a servitor relationship, Sakya, a friendship relationship, Vatsalya, a parental relationship, or Madhurya, a conjugal relationship. Radharani is the topmost of all the conjugal lovers of Krishna, and she has many, many thousands of goddesses of fortune assisting her. Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, Devaki, and Vasudev are the emblems, the archetypes of parental service to the Lord, to whom the Lord appears as their loving child. And then Arjuna and cowherd associates like Madhu Mangala, Sridham, as well as Arjuna, are Sakya. They're in the mode of friendship with the Lord. The younger cowherd boys are in the mood of servitorship. And then the so-called inanimate objects like grass, trees, water, clouds are in the mood of Santa. They serve the Lord in a passive way. Whether you're in Santa or whether you're in Madhurya, generally Madhurya is considered the highest, Shanta is considered the fifth level of devotion. It doesn't matter because that's who you are. You're completely satisfied. Even Lord Brahma, the creator of this material universe, said that if I could swap my position, my sovereignty as Lord Brahma, the creator of this universe, Lord Brahma lives on the topmost heavenly planet of this universe as well. He said if I could swap that to be a blade of grass in the spiritual world, I would do that in a nanosecond. So that Lord who reciprocates as the son of Mother Yashoda, as the friend of Arjuna, as the Lord of the younger cowherd boys, that Supreme Lord, his relationships, his pastimes, his interactions between his and his devotees cannot be understood by the non-devotees. They remain a total mystery, just like the audience on stage cannot understand who the actor is in real life. They may know his name from the program or the marquee, but and they may have read things in gossip magazines, but they cannot really know who that person is. In fact, they in order to enjoy the movie and get into the plot and get their money's worth at the cinema, they have to intentionally put aside any knowledge that they have about that actor's personal life. They get totally absorbed. They suspend their disbelief. They put aside what they think they know in order to go along with the plot and experience all the emotions that they paid their money to experience. But otherwise, the activities of the Lord in relationship with devotees cannot be understood by the non-devotee. Yesterday, we were talking about how it is that the Lord gives himself fully to each and every devotee. The best example of this is Krishna in the 16,000 palaces of his queens in Dwarka. Narada Muni, one time, as described in the Krishna book, visited each and every one of Krishna's 16,000 palaces. He started with the palace of Rukmini, and then he went on to visit each and every one of them. He didn't see Krishna doing the same thing in any of those palaces. We explained yesterday how yogis, in order to simultaneously bathe in the 7 sacred rivers of India, can expand themselves as many as 7 different times. And then those mirror expansions, which are simply reflections of the original, they take a bath in not 1 but 7 of the sacred rivers of India at the same time, and thus multiplying by 7 times the good purificatory effects they get. But no yogi can expand more than 7, or sometimes the version is 9 times. Sorry, I got a little itch here. Nor can those expansions be independently acting, have independent will. Krishna expanded himself. Of course, he expands himself in the heart of every living being. There's no limit. As many atoms there are, as many living beings as there are with beating hearts, Krishna's in each and every one of them. Gunatmanate gunamanitam hitavanusha karini yavar bupamsake nyabhyabhishaha. Says the scientists may one day be able to know how many grains of sand there are on the beach. They may know how many stars there are in all the galaxies and universes. They may know how many snowflakes are in a snowstorm. But they'll never be able to come to the end of counting the number of expansions of Krishna that there are. But just to give us a little hint of his unlimited expansiveness, Narada Muni visited each and every one of the 16,000 palaces of Krishna in Dwarka city and saw Krishna doing a different thing in each and every palace. Now, there's nobody that can pretend, there's no one can role play better than Krishna. Imagine you're in one theater and you're seeing one famous actor, and this is live. Imagine you're in one live theater and you're seeing one famous actor up on the stage. And by his prowess, by the way he's costumed, by the way he delivers his lines, by his training, by the inflections of his voice, by his dramatic presence, you're so impressed. You say to your partner, I think he should get an Academy Award. Okay, now imagine that on every single live stage in the world, that same actor is appearing. Now, he's not appearing as the same actor in the same role in the same drama, right? On every live stage in the world, he's appearing in a different role with different costume, delivering different lines, playing a different character simultaneously. Try to just, it's mind boggling, to say the very least. It's mind boggling, to say the very least. So, Krishna, in one way or another, even for the materialists, he is also supplying what they think they need. And for the purified devotees who are in the internal potency of the Lord, he is relating to them exactly according to their eternally liberated persona. But he's also reacting with those who are in ignorance, giving them not what is best for them necessarily, but what they want. Not necessarily what their need is, but according to their greed. He doesn't begrudge them liberty to misuse their free will. So imagine that Krishna is reciprocating simultaneously with each and every living being in an entirely different way from one to another, unlimited. That would just give us some idea. And of course, it doesn't give us any idea. All it does is it just gives us a brain freeze. I mean, we can only go so far with that, and then we just have to drop it, because the brain, you'd go completely crazy trying to follow one actor on every stage in the world, playing a different role, speaking different lines, enchanting a different audience, all simultaneously. I mean, how can you grasp that? It's not possible. If you want to have a connection with God, this is the best place to start. Like, God is inconceivable. That's the best starting point. That God's potencies are so unlimited and so variegated, so mystical. God's such a good actor, and he's such a profuse actor. He's acting everywhere at all times, exactly according to the mood of the audience. You cannot begin to comprehend that. All we can do is just say, the Lord is inconceivable. The Lord that I worship is inconceivable. We don't have to understand him. We just have to have faith in him. We just have to trust him. And who would not trust someone with that kind of power? He's in your heart, but consider, more importantly, he's in the heart of your enemies. Those who initially seek to do you harm, Krishna has the power to change their heart and make them well disposed to you. So who would not be so foolish as to worship Krishna? Because from every angle and from every point of view, he is our main benefactor, and he is the only one who can truly do the greatest amount of good to us. In fact, he created us eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and he wants to bring us back to that blissful, perfect state. We interrupted our session yesterday halfway through the description of Narad as he toured Krishna's various palaces. With your permission, I'll just finish up on that today. As Narada Muni continued visiting the 16,000 palaces of Krishna and Dwarka, it says in one palace he found Krishna feeding Brahmas and performing ritualistic sacrifices. In another palace, he saw Krishna sitting down with his thumb wrapped around his Gayatri mantra and silently chanting the Gayatri mantra. Om Bhurvavashaha Tat Savito Varenyam Bhargavata Sadhimahi Dhyayana Prachodayate. And because Krishna is a Kshatriya and he appeared to curb the miscreants, and he often was obliged to fight with the wrongdoers, in another palace he's practicing with a sword and a shield. In the Mahabharata, it describes there are 14 movements of the sword. You practice 14 different maneuvers with the sword, and one swordsman can contend with 100 others if he's expert in these 14 movements of the sword. So Krishna, he's the source of all ability, of all dexterity, of all prowess, and yet still he practices. He doesn't have to practice, but we have to practice, and whatever Krishna does is setting an example for us. So Krishna is telling us that I practice. I don't have to practice, but even I practice, so you should practice too. If Krishna didn't practice, then people would say, well, if Krishna doesn't practice, then why should I practice? So Krishna practices with the sword and the shield, even though the ability of the expert, the world's most expert swordsman, that ability comes from Krishna, and yet Krishna practices. In another palace, it says Krishna was practicing riding on horses, chariots, or elephants. Krishna is very expert in driving chariot. There's one episode from the Mahabharata where Jayadratha had killed Arjuna's son Abhimanyu on the previous day. When Arjuna got back to the camp and learned the sad news at the end of the day, he promised that before the cessation of hostilities on the following day, he would kill Jayadratha, or failing that, he would commit suicide. He made this rash promise without consulting Krishna. So Krishna came and said, Arjuna, what have you done? Do you have any idea how difficult that's going to be? Arjuna's Duryodhana's spies overheard what you said. So tomorrow they're going to arrange their army in the needle formation. They're going to have 4 million men deployed in a pattern that's 49 miles long. And Jayadratha is going to be at the very back. How are you going to kill him? I mean, surely we could kill him, but by sunset, when all hostilities stop, I don't know. Anyway, Krishna never violates the promise of his devotees. He will break his own promise in order to keep the promise of the devotee. So the next day, never in the history of the world, ever, not even close, had anyone ever driven a chariot with the expertise that Krishna did. From the time the sun rose and the conch shells were blown, the kettle drums beaten, the trumpets sounded, and the hostilities started, Krishna drove Arjuna's chariot Arjuna either defeated directly and drove over the fallen bodies of the opposing members, or failing that, if their opposition was holding up Arjuna and Krishna too long, putting them behind schedule, Krishna would find a way to go around them, to flank them and get behind them. So Krishna and Arjuna, they literally fought every one of the 4 million soldiers on the other side and either outflanked them or defeated them. And they got to Jayadratha. Anyway, the whole story about what happened just at the moment of sunset's time for another occasion. But never before had anyone driven a chariot with such a level of expertise as Krishna. And so Narada Muni saw Krishna in another palace, riding on horses, driving chariots, maneuvering elephants. Elsewhere, he found Krishna lying down, taking rest. Fortune 500 companies have discovered that if their employees take a half an hour rest halfway through the day, they perform much better. This is a practice which is widely done in Europe, and it's a fact, statistically speaking. With a little half-hour rest in the middle of the day, the performance of employees is much better. So many of the Fortune 500 companies in Europe, they have a little room where they can go in. It's dark. Darkness rejuvenates. The senses get a break from their engagement with the external world. They rest for half an hour and they go back and they hit it for the afternoon. So Krishna is modeling the original Fortune 500 workday, taking rest somewhere in the middle of the day. Elsewhere, he's found sitting in his chair or sitting cross-legged on the floor, which is a much better, healthier way. He'd listening to the prayers, offerings, bhajans of his different devotees. In other palaces, he was found consulting with ministers like Uddhava. Another palace, he was surrounded by, he was in a swimming pool. In another palace, he was giving well-decorated cows in charity to the Brahmins. In another palace, he was hearing the narrations. Krishna's own pastimes were being sung to him from the Puranas and the Mahabharata by the sages and bards. So Somewhere Krishna was enjoying the company of a particular wife with joking words, and somewhere else he was engaged in religious, ritualistic activities. He was getting together with an appointed meeting with his accountants to go over the financial expenditures. Somewhere else he was enjoying family life with the kids and the grandkids, according to the principles of the scriptures. In one palace, he's sitting in meditation, concentrating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is himself. Meditation is recommended to calm one down. The Buddha, particularly noted for promoting meditation, Prabhupada explains why the Buddha emphasizes meditation so much. Buddha is a Shaktavasha, an empowered incarnation of Krishna. At the time the Buddha appeared, people were eating meat. Eating meat and slaughtering of animals was rampant throughout the world at that time. And they were using the Vedas as an excuse in order to kill animals. In some parts of the Vedas, it's mentioned that warriors can go out hunting animals in order to sharpen their martial skills. Krishna himself even did that. In some places, there's a detailed description of how the Brahmins can use the potency of their mantras to sacrifice an old animal and bring it back to life in a new body, just to show the power of mantras. The mention is there, killing animals, but under very restricted, limited, specified circumstances. However, people of all kinds, castes and descriptions, were slaughtering thousands and thousands of animals. And then, when challenged, when confronted with it, they would quote passages from the Vedas out of context. And so Buddha basically appeared, and by the force of his own personality, made popular the principles of metta and ahimsa, nonviolence, and compassion. But it's explained that Buddha promoted the practice of meditation not as the best way to get in touch with God. Service. The Lord is a sentient being. We're sentient beings. We need to be active. Activity is the nature of the soul. And so when that activity is transformed into devotional service, that's the way you make an immediate and intimate connection with the Lord. So what is the role of meditation? It's explained that if a child is misbehaving, the child is all excited and manic, mother concludes that it's not possible to engage the child in positive, constructive work right at this moment. So she gives him a cooling off period. She says, go sit in a corner. Just go sit and do nothing and think about your craziness. Have your blood pressure go down, have your metabolism return to normal. And then after that, she may be able to get him to make his bed, clean up his room, take out the trash, go to school, do his homework. But right in the heat of the moment, it's not possible to switch gears for the child from mischievousness, naughtiness, manic behavior to constructive behavior. And so the parent says, go sit in the corner. So Buddha says the same thing. You guys are up to so much mischievous. You're causing pain and suffering to animals against God's desire. These are God's children. He loves them as much as you, and you are terrorizing them. So just go sit in the corner. Instead of engaging in mischievous nonsense activities which cause unlimited suffering to other of God's children, just sit down and meditate. So the practice of meditation, not necessarily a positive spiritual practice. It's more like taking the child and putting him in the corner so that it will not do any harm. It's not so much doing any real good, but it is a timeout during which the child or the misbehaving, the culprit, is not doing anything wrong. When you cool down and calm down, then the mother can put you to work in some constructive way. And so meditation is not the perfected, the most highly recommended activity of the spiritualist, but rather work in devotion, not work in such a way as to cause pain and suffering to other living beings. So the Lord, again, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He doesn't have to meditate upon himself, but he does so. And Prabhupada comments in this section of the Krishna book, which is incidentally a 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, he says Krishna is the original Vishnu, but because he plays the part of a human being, he's teaching us by his personal behavior what is actually meant by meditation. Meditation is meant to disengage in mischievous activities and to engage the mind in the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality. Dhane Vashtita Tadgatena Manasha Tam Yogina Ramante. The yogis, the true yogis, not the pseudo yogis, and not the ones that are just cooling off from having engaged in sinful activities, but the true yogis, those who are fixed in yoga, they meditate upon the form of the super soul, the Paramatma within one's heart. What does this mean? Krishna is the original Vishnu. It's the title of our talk today. Why did we choose it that way? A lot of students come to the Spanish Fork Temple. In fact, at the moment, Professor Gaskell at BYU is offering students the option of going to an alternative religious churches services. Many of them are coming here. For the last few weeks we've had a steady stream of BYU students. I believe the paper's due next Monday, and so probably the largest number, having left it to the last minute, will arrive this Sunday for our services at 5 o'clock. Now, one misconception amongst students, one misconception which is taught in the academic world, is that Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu. Prabhupada says, no, Krishna himself is the original Vishnu. In the authorized texts, such as Jayadev Goswami's Gita Govinda, which was written in the 12th century, Krishna is not mentioned as an incarnation of Vishnu. Jayadev Goswami specifically explains that he has not included Krishna in the list of the 10 incarnations of Vishnu because Vishnu is an incarnation of Krishna. Krishna is not an incarnation of Vishnu. It's incorrect to say that Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu. Krishna is like, the example is given, Krishna is the original candle. Now with an original candle you can light hundreds of other candles, and those candles can have the same candle power as the original. But still the distinction exists that without that original you wouldn't have got all the other candles lit and illuminated. Another example is milk can be made into yogurt, and milk and yogurt are equivalent. They're both dairy products, but the difference is from milk you can get yogurt, from yogurt you can't get milk. So from Krishna, a single Krishna, you get millions and millions of Vishnus, Brahmas, and Shivas. But however many Brahmas, Vishnus, and Shivas you get, so to speak, you cannot get one Krishna. So it's not a fact that Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu. Krishna has qualities and features that Vishnu doesn't have. Think about it. Vishnu is limited by his majesty. He's limited by his opulences. He's limited by his maturity. The role of Vishnu, as he is created from the singularity of Krishna, is to exhibit the power, the might, the majesty of Godhead in order to pose a subtle threat to wrongdoers. The presence of Vishnu with the razor-sharp disc and the club in his hand. And it's also well known he knows how to use bow and arrow as well as javelins and other weapons as well. The presence of Vishnu is a deterrent to crime in the culture, in the society. You know, basically the presence of Vishnu is sending a message to those who would be miscreants. If you break the law, if you harass other sons and daughters of God, not just in the human community, but also in the animal community as well, then you're going to have to deal with Vishnu. Sooner or later, you're going to get hauled before Vishnu, and you're going to have to explain yourself. You're going to get called to account. And that's the role of Vishnu. There are millions of Vishnus, Brahmas, and Shivas, and their aura of majesty and power is meant to curb the level of crime in their area of sovereignty. It's not that crime will cease to exist, but certainly crime will be less. It's logically fallacious to say that, well, we have laws against stealing. Stealing is going on, so the law doesn't work. Let's take the law off the books. No, that's really devious, backward, wrong thinking. There's a law against stealing. It doesn't stop all stealing, but it does stop most stealing. If you didn't have the law, there'd be a lot more stealing, there'd be a lot more murder. So the law doesn't stop it, but it certainly reduces it quite a bit. So, Vishnu is there. He's intimidating. He's powerful. He's meant to strike fear. He's meant to give the criminals a pause for thought before they harass other of God's citizens. And there's millions and millions of Vishnus. But think about it. Vishnu is limited by his role as a king, as an enforcer. He must needs be surrounded by awe and majesty. One time when I was traveling in Europe, I was staying with an American family, Clement Biddle Woods and his wife Jessica. And they took me to Versailles. We spent an afternoon, we went to Versailles. I was tutoring their kids in English. And the Durbar, the audience hall at Versailles, where Louis XIV, they called him the Sun King, presided, is just amazing. When you spend money as a king on a palace like Versailles, it's money well spent. It actually can stop war. The money you spend on your palace will save you money in fighting wars. Why is that? Because when the ambassadors of other kings or the kings themselves come to visit you and they see your opulence, your power, they dismiss thoughts of challenging you. They dismiss thoughts of fighting with you. They rather pay you money. So the reason that palaces of kings are so opulent is very well thought out. The money you spend building up your palace and creating your image is money that could very well get you to a point where not only do you not have to spend money and use manpower to fight challenges on your borders, but you'll get money. They'll, being so impressed with your living conditions and your palace and your guards, they will pay you money. So that's why, whereas the common man in Vedic culture is meant to live in a simple hut, even a wealthy man would live very simply, and the money would go to build up the temples, but the tax money would go to provide a very intimidating, opulent palace for the king. And that would go a long way towards preventing war, towards preventing the treasury depleted by war, but rather the treasury filled up by taxes and tribute paid by kings on your borderlands who are impressed. They would rather pay you off not to fight them than to fight you. So this is Vishnu. Vishnu but when Louis XIV was sitting, receiving kings and ambassadors and accepting tribute, he's very limited. He can't express the full spectrum of his personality. However, this sunny afternoon when I was visiting Versailles with Clement Woods and his wife Jessica and their kids, the tour guides took us to the gardens. The gardens were magnificent. But back in a remote part of the garden, there was a hedge which was high enough and thick enough to create privacy. The tour guide explained to us that the king, after an exhausting day of receiving visitors and dealing with affairs of state, he would go back into that garden, take off his heavy cloak and his crown and just toss them away, put on something light, maybe a tank top, pair of shorts, some Adidas, and then play with his best friends. He just one of the guys, and there's no thought of majesty or intimidation, because his friends are automatically good citizens. They're automatically right with the state. It would never occur to them to challenge the king. The king is their friend. The king is their buddy. Um, and they play as equals. He would engage in games of croquet or badminton. Sometimes he would win, sometimes he would lose. The king, you might imagine, would get more pleasure of losing in a game, competitive game with his friends, than he would of winning a game of diplomacy against a competitive, envious king. He gets tired sometimes of everyone kowtowing and singing his glories. Every once in a while, instead of being the Lord of everyone, instead of chastising everyone, sometimes he likes to be the underdog. He likes to be chastised. He enjoys that. And so we see the king more fully as a person back in that private area with his friends than we do sitting on the throne. Similarly, Vishnu would never be the source of Krishna, ever. It's not rocket science. Just think about it. Vishnu is limited by his role. Basically, Vishnu is playing the role of God. Krishna doesn't play the role of God. His friends, his parents, his associates are covered by his deluding yogamaya internal potency. They don't think of him as God. They think of him as a friend. They think of him as a lover. They think of him as a child. They think of him as their their older brother. That's where God exhibits his personality to the full. And so Vishnu, being less than Krishna, could not be the source of Krishna. It's a logical principle that which creates something, the created entity, cannot, by definition, have more qualities than that from which it comes. The source is the source of all the qualities in the emanations as well. The source has all the qualities that the emanations have, and more. There may be qualities which are reserved, which are held back. And the qualities of playfulness, the qualities of youthful beauty, the qualities of playing the flute, the qualities of living in the rural area of Vrindavan are qualities that Vishnu cannot have, cannot display. Krishna is always more than Vishnu. From one Krishna you get millions and millions of Vishnus. Now I want to finish today's session with a what if. With a supposition, with a speculation. Okay. And now let's just say what if we're talking about throughout this entire series Krishna role playing, okay? So what if, because some people think they want to minimize the position of Krishna, so some people think that Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu. And we're talking about how Krishna reciprocates with everyone, right? Some people think that Krishna accepted a material body, a temporary body, to come here. And when he left, he would have left that body behind. So Krishna, in order to satisfy their crooked thinking, he left a body. He went back in his eternal spiritual body, but he also left a material body as a red herring for the materialists. Okay, so some people are thinking that Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu. So he gives them something. He gives them something. Imagine, we're going to the governor's mansion tonight. The governor's a Republican. Imagine the president being a Republican, the governor of Utah being a Republican. Now, the president may decide that if the governor of Utah needs a boost, he needs more votes so he can get elected, and this will strengthen their common party, the Republican Party. The president of the United States may arrange to visit Utah. Now, he's not going to fly in independently. He's not going to insult or minimize the local Republican governor by just coming and showing up one day. Just the opposite. He's going to make a big deal out of coming as the guest of the governor of Utah. This will inflate the stature of the local Republican representative. People saying, "Oh, our governor is so powerful that when he calls the president comes." So the president may play the role as the guest of the governor of Utah. And in order to boost the stature of the Republican so that he'll get elected, so that the Republican Party nationwide will be strong, while he's here, he will repeatedly refer to the governor, or let's say defer to the governor in all matters of etiquette in all public assemblies. He'll say, I'm just a guest of the governor. I'm just here to help out the governor. I'm just here to serve the governor. He's not. He's much bigger than the governor, but he's acting, he's role playing in order to promote the statue of the governor. So Krishna's famous for minimizing his own role. He doesn't care. He doesn't need recognition. He doesn't need acknowledgement. He doesn't need applause. He's Atmaramas. He's full and happy and beaming and smiling, always full in himself. But he subordinates himself. He's famous for subordinating himself to his devotees. So it makes perfect sense that coming into this material world, Krishna would come as a representative of Vishnu, even though he's far more than Vishnu. We're talking about Krishna reciprocating with each and every living being according to the desires of their heart, whether it be pure desires or whether it be impure material desires, whether that living being be deluded by yoga maya or whether that living being be deluded by maya, mahamaya. So for those who are influenced by mahamaya, Krishna comes as a representative of Vishnu, so that he will promote Vishnu. And by promoting Vishnu to a certain class of people, that will help to keep order and harmony in the universe. So I hope I've explained how it is that Krishna gives something. He gives a bone to those who would minimize him and put him under Vishnu. He has his own purposes. He has his own reason for doing that. And in fact, Krishna coming as a representative, as an incarnation of Vishnu, fits perfectly with his stated purpose that he glorifies and exalts his devotees. But don't make the mistake of thinking that Arjuna is greater than he who is driving Arjuna's chariot. No, he who is driving Arjuna's chariot is actually the director, the coordinator, the orchestrator of everything that not only is going on in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, but everything that's going on anywhere in all of the three worlds. There is no limit to the power of God. We can never understand it, but we can take advantage of that fact to learn to glorify him, to honor him, and to trust him in everything that we do. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you. That will be it for Transcendental Tuesday. And as I mentioned, we're not likely to have our class tomorrow because we're going to Diwali up at the governor's mansion in Salt Lake City. It doesn't start till 7. It probably won't end till 9, 9:30. We won't be back till well after our normal bedtime. And so probably we will not have a Wisdom Wednesday tomorrow. But I'll give you all the details next Monday. Thank you, Rob. Do you have any anything for us today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I do. You'll have to be the judge on whether or not they're good enough to use.
I use most of them. I don't always use everyone, but I think you'll agree. I use most of them.
Here we go. Krishna and his 16,000 wives survives and thrives and expands into all their lives. Krishna is the cast and director, crew and producer.
I like that one. I'll definitely use that one.
It does not matter what one understands as long as he puts his life and heart in Krishna's hands.
Oh, beautiful. That's excellent. That's really the essence of what we were saying this morning.
Meditate to recalibrate.
Krishna himself does it.
One moment, Prabhuji.
Hey, Kel, Haribo.
Hey,
How you doing?
I'm good.
All right. Good to hear it.
Papa.
Prabhu, he said Prabhu. You got a devotee there.
What? I got a mod.
What did he say? He's starting to call people Prabhu now?
Sometimes.
Fantastic.
And then I have 3 more. Vishnu intimidates the people to deter the presence of evil.
Oh, I like that one.
Better tax and tribute than war and dispute.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Krishna is the source and driving force.
You know, I think you actually were listening to the class. I think you really listened to this class. You've captured the essence of it from several different angles and points of view. I'm very pleased.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
We're getting all kinds of thumbs up and hearts too as people hear your little aphorisms. Well, I'll look forward to you getting them to me by email, and we'll post them here in just a very few minutes' time. Thank you, Rob. We've got Brent. Brent was the first one to join. Jay Keshava from Phoenix. Manasa Ganga, thank you for joining us. All the regulars. Rakesh, Jean, by Bobby. That's who we've got in the comments section. And we've got more people live listening who have not commented. So whether you commented or not, we appreciate your comment is better, so we know who you are. But nevertheless, we're very glad for anybody who's dropped in. We'll see you on the weekend when we won't be speaking in Salt Lake on Saturday, but we'll be speaking in Spanish Fork on Sunday, and then on Monday we still have some more information on this topic, believe it or not. So we'll revisit Krishna as the actor on stage, as the supreme magician. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.